Bellingham and Harry Kane, so that was something he definitely wanted to look at today. A couple of good saves from Patrick Sequeira, one of them to deny Harry Kane his 80th England goal is the reason it's only 1-0. Really impressed Thomas Tuchel with the clean-up operation, the mopping-up operation at the Inter & Co Stadium in Orlando. I was staggered to find how dry the pitch was when England arrived 90 minutes or so ahead of the rescheduled kick-off time of 5 o'clock locally, considering the sheer amount of water that they had watched fall from the sky from their team hotel. It's going to be a tough route back towards the top for Costa Rica. This is a really useful test for them. For England, of course, this is the perfect game if you consider that they play Panama in their final group game in New York, New Jersey. Panama are the team who are just one place ahead of Costa Rica in terms of the CONCACAF rankings. So far, so good for England. It's been a really good opening 29 minutes from them. Scored once, they've forced a couple of good saves out of the opposition goalkeeper, and Jordan Pickford really needs binoculars to be following the action. Johnson looking to get the ball forward. Stones back to Jordan Pickford. That might just be the first time he's touched the ball inside his own penalty area, and he's made an uncharacteristic mistake. Gallo with a chance. England and their goalkeeper in particular weren't switched back on after the hydration break. Took a gamble, Jordan Pickford. Mora for his skipper, and Orlando Gallo's effort deflected wide for what is Costa Rica's first corner. Soto takes. And somewhat let England off the hook there by the ball ends up all the way back with Sequeira in the Costa Rica goal. Hello wants a free kick for the challenge from Bellingham. Isn't convinced about that. By Ferreira, header won by Mora. Jordan Pickford will be grateful to have the ball in his hands after the misjudgment that very nearly threatened England's lead. Anderson. Stones, O'Reilly, Rice, helping it on brilliantly for Gordon, who was fouled just outside the penalty area by Jalen Mitchell. There's a delightful touch in here from Declan Rice. Great vision. And the deftness of touch as well. Dispute ongoing here. Jalen Mitchell is utterly unconvinced that he stepped out of line. It's the verdict, though, of Katja Karoleva that matters more than any. Composure required as Costa Rica look to get themselves reorganised here. This is undoubtedly a promising position that England find themselves in. All sorts of options available to them. Declan Rice and Reece James are running through a few of them now. Conversation ongoing. Are there too many choices? Declan Rice for England. It was a shot rather than a cross. And it wasn't particularly close to adding to his earlier goal. Well, when you've got one already, I guess you're entitled to think it's your day. Surprised he started with the jacket on, it's sweltering. Anderson's header. So the ball was a little irregular, but Harry Kane seemed to know where it was heading. Gallo forward. Anderson there first for England. Closed down really quickly by Alcacer. Having erred a little bit earlier when he had the ball at his feet. Certainly Alcacer recognised that it was an opportunity to put some pressure on the England goalkeeper. But Bellingham has threaded it beautifully for Madueke, who is in! And has somehow failed to make it 2-0. It's a horrible miss at the end of a really ruthless attack that should have seen England extend their lead. Done the hard bit, outmanoeuvred Sequeira. The goal was vacant, but Madueke could find only the foot of the post. Disbelief amongst the England support. Better to get those sorts of mistakes out of the way before the World Cup starts for real. Easier to see the funny side of it today than it would be against Croatia, Ghana or Panama. Anderson and Gallo have collided. Anderson's immediately sat upright, but is being checked carefully. Both have their eyes on the ball. Neither was quite prepared for what was about to happen. Elliot Anderson has become a big asset for Thomas Tuchel in England. He's now been involved in 9 of the 10 games since he made his debut in a 1-0 win over Andorra in World Cup qualifying in September. Madueke still contemplating how he hasn't added to the goal that he scored in a 5-0 win over Serbia in the same month that Elliot Anderson made his debut. Soto dispossessed. Gordon challenged by Johnson successfully. Mora. Johnson applying some pressure to Stones. Nice in concert there as well. England untroubled by the prospect of playing it out right in front of their own goal. Harry Kane in the opposite penalty area to the one where he usually does his business. And England have invited pressure. And Costa Rica have looked to benefit from that. Instead, though, England can break and break quickly. Bellingham. Madueke. Jude Bellingham. Harry Kane. Bellingham for Rice this time. Bellingham is there again. It's a disappointing outcome at the end of what had looked a promising move. And it's Thomas Tuchel's 14th game in charge of England today, and Jude Bellingham is starting for just the 5th time. There have been moments where his place in the squad, never mind the team, have been open to debate since January of last year. The fact that Jude Bellingham is on the pitch for England's final World Cup warm-up would suggest that he's very much back in favour. Noni Madueke is highly unimpressed with a challenge from Daryl Araya. And Jude Bellingham's got himself involved in the discussion as well. Result was an England free kick and an ongoing disagreement over the way in which it was conceded. And a sweltering day, hot under the collar, is not what you want. Declan Rice. Cleared as far as Reece James. Alcacer's header. Soto assisting. And conceding a throw. It took a touch off him out of play, having cannoned into Gordon. Kane getting on with it for England, who would like another goal before half-time, and there's only 4 minutes plus stoppage time remaining before the interval. Stones. Anderson. Throwing one by Reece James after some consideration from the referee's assistant that Yosimar Alcacer isn't entirely sure was the correct verdict. O'Reilly, Gordon. An England free kick here. Andre Soto is displeased. Nico O'Reilly was the one on the receiving end. It was a crunching coming together between the two players. Soto feels that he was the more wronged of the two. There's definitely a foul by Manfred Ugalde, who was really lively and instinctive against Colombia last week. Whenever he got on the ball, he was a menace, but it's been a frustrating game for him so far because he has very, very rarely been on the ball. So a caution for someone on the Costa Rica bench. Bellingham. Madueke. Held up by Alcacer. Costa Rica win the throw. England haven't necessarily found friendlies straightforward in recent times. They've won only 3 of the most recent 9. That has been in part due to some experimentation. That is not the case today. Very close, you would imagine, to the first choice World Cup 11. Ugalde, Anderson, Bellingham. England have been untroubled defensively and should be further ahead than 1-0. They would like to be when the half-time whistle blows. Stones. O'Reilly. Gordon assumed there was somebody in white immediately behind him. Who just raised there. Carlos Mora, yellow card. Don't think there was any intent to hurt Elliot Anderson, but toe of the boot, stud showing. To 4. Additional minutes at the end of first half. First half that was delayed by an hour by the weather earlier. On the basis of the England performance, they will be delighted that the clouds cleared and this game was able to go ahead, because it so far has been a very useful exercise. Stones towards Gordon. Mitchell is there. Throwing conceded. Rice. Bellingham with the touch for Konsa. Shake off Soto. Anderson. O'Reilly. Gordon has not been as impactful in the latter stages of the first half as he was early on. Costa Rica have found a way of dealing with him. Kane in towards Gordon, who very nearly escaped the shackles, and then he was fouled and England have a penalty. Well, no sooner had Costa Rica seems to have come to terms with the threat of Anthony Gordon than he comes alive again. Wonderful vision initially from Harry Kane to spot Gordon, who then got to the loose ball ahead of Sean Johnson, who in his determination to stay close to his opponent ended up sending him to the floor. it will inevitably be Harry Kane to take responsibility. But will he get a chance to take responsibility, because Katia Koroleva has been offered an opportunity to have another look at this. The referee's immediate verdict was that this was a foul from behind by Sean Johnson. Is there any compelling evidence there that the referee's initial interpretation was incorrect? And the referee has waved away the England penalty. And a reprieve for Sean Johnson and Costa Rica. Just as it seemed as though Harry Kane was going to step up, and as he would more often than not do from that sort of situation, extend England's advantage. 1-0 it remains. Well, just as against New Zealand, England a goal to the good at half-time against Costa Rica, but altogether better first half showing from one of the World Cup favourites, and it was one of the players who only recently linked up with the squad, Declan Rice, who got the goal just inside 10 minutes. Harry Kane's header and Madueke's shot saved by Sequeira before Madueke, set clear by Bellingham, hit the post when he should have converted into an empty net. So at half-time, England will need to be satisfied with the score of England 1, Costa Rica 0. Well, England a goal to the good against Costa Rica. And unlike Saturday against New Zealand, it's not going to be a completely fresh England 11 that takes to the field for the second half. Thomas Tuchel stated that anyone who started the game would play at least an hour. And it does appear as though Costa Rica are going to be incredibly similar to the team that ended the first half. No sign as yet of alterations. England will feel as though they deserve to be further ahead. Costa Rica had an awful lot of defending to do. It is going to be an alteration. And it is seemingly, yes, the reversal of the change prior to the game. Hachel Quiroz is coming on for Sean Johnson, who had a tough time on his debut right back against a determined and lively Anthony Gordon. Was caught out for the goal by which England lead and was penalised for a penalty that was overturned with the intervention of VAR. So England get us back underway. Declan Rice to Jordan Pickford, and England looking to immediately re-establish themselves deep in Costa Rica territory, which is where they spent the majority of the first 45 minutes. Raised boots again. Elliot Anderson, the England player, involved. No contact this time for Manfred Ugalde. John Stones, Harry Kane, Elliot Anderson, Madueke, who had the best chance to make it 2-0 for England. He's now determined to try and do exactly that. Anderson was the target. Anderson penalised, Costa Rica free kick. James tried to stop Yosemar Alcacer. Anderson did, just not legally. Here's James. Here for Bellingham. England players who started the game will be absolutely determined that in the 15 minutes or so of the second half that they will get together, that they can make a further impression on the match. Harry Kane spreading the play out to Noni Madueke. Expert stuff. Madueke! Having missed a sitter in the first half, he very nearly produced something spectacular in the second. Great vision from Harry Kane to find Madueke, and once he was cutting in onto the left foot, curling the shot inside the post always seemed possible, just didn't bend back quite enough. It would have been quite a way to make amends for his awful miss in the first half, which no doubt there was much discussion at half-time. Stumble, quickly recovered. Anderson for Rice. Given away by Anderson. Mora has made excellent progress. Rice in pursuit. Carlos Mora just simply could not shrug off Declan Rice. Stuck to the task. Rueful reaction from Carlos Mora. There have been scant opportunities for Costa Rica to threaten the England goal. Mora clearly thought that that was an occasion on which he might. Stones for O'Reilly. Gordon taking over. Here's Bellingham. Reece James. Jude Bellingham. Led away by Queiroz. Rice for Anderson. James. John Stones. Declan Rice. Gordon. Exploded into life on a couple of occasions in the first half. Bellingham constantly willing to get on the ball. Here he is again. Oh, has managed to keep the ball in play somehow. He's gifted it back to England. For Rice, for Anderson. Declan Rice to Nico O'Reilly.